I got a bad feeling about this.
Star Wars The Last Jedi is finally out now, and so far critics seem to love it. There are people even going as far as to say that it is as good as The Empire Strikes Back. It's been getting 5-star, 4-star reviews across the board. It's got incredibly high scores on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. Critically, it seems to have gone down really well, but I have to say, I didn't really like the film, and I've been talking to a lot of friends who've seen the film and people online, and it seems like a lot of people who went to see it had some issues with it. And I mean, it's crazy. I was so looking forward to this film. I went to see it with my dad, and I really enjoyed The Force Awakens, and I like Star Wars. And when I saw the early reviews of this film, I was thinking, man, it looks like it's really going to take off here. But unfortunately, I left the cinema disappointed, and I really hate to say that. I really wanted to like this film, but I left the cinema thinking about all the great reviews this film has had, and I just wondered, did I see the same film that these critics did? Did they get a different cut or something? Because to me, whilst there were certainly some bits I liked about the film, it had some pretty significant flaws. So, I mean, this video, I don't know whether to call it a review or an impressions video. I don't know. I just want to talk about this film with people who have seen it. Obviously, massive spoilers. I'm going to talk about all the plot points of all the Star Wars films. So if you're not up to date, go and see it now. Don't watch this video if you don't want spoilers yet. As to whether you should go and see this film, I think yes, you should, because it's a new Star Wars film and everyone's going to be talking about it. And there's certainly some things to like about it. There are some people who do really like it, so that could be you. However, I have to say I was disappointed, so make your own mind up. First of all, talking about the film, I want to talk about the things I didn't like about it, which there was a lot, unfortunately. However, there were things I did like about it, and I will talk about them afterwards. So the Star Wars logo comes blaring on the screen, and I have to admit, I was smiling. I felt like a kid again. I was like, yes, here we go, another Star Wars film. I got excited, and then the cruel words come up. The blurb of each film comes up, and despite the fact that the First Order / Empire has been beaten at pretty much every single turn in the films except for The Empire Strikes Back, somehow the rebels are still on the back foot. Somehow the First Order is still this incredibly powerful organisation, despite the fact they've lost 2 Death Stars, a number of ships, and Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens. Somehow they're still this incredibly powerful organisation. You would think that the rebels by now would be at least equal to the Empire, if not bigger than it. But somehow no, the good guys are still on the back foot. They're still the underdogs, which I don't really know how, but they are. I think, this sounds terrible to say, but there were moments throughout this film where I felt bored, and I thought to myself, I'm watching a new Star Wars film I've never seen before, and I'm feeling bored. And that is just such a terrible feeling to feel. I hate myself for feeling that way, The Force Awakens, now, it's not a flawless film. It's certainly, it's almost a reboot of the original Star Wars. However, I feel like it really captured the magic and excitement and adventure of Star Wars, the things we love about Star Wars. It had great new characters, we got to catch up with old characters, there were amazing scenes, aliens, space fights. I was entertained from start to finish with that film. And, I came out of it just feeling so excited. But with The Last Jedi, there were moments where I was just sat there thinking, come on. It really felt like it's a 2.5-hour film. I felt like there was so much they could have cut from it to make it feel tighter as a film. The first issue that stuck out straight away for the film for me was the humour. I've seen a lot of other people saying they didn't like the humour in this film, and they feel like Disney has kind of turned it into the Marvel type humour you get in the superhero films. And I think generally it works for the superhero films, but it didn't work for Star Wars. I didn't like how the opening scene is a big space battle. The rebels are going up against a huge fleet of the First Order, and you have Poe Dameron, great character. I really like him. He sort of tunes into the Empire's comms and speaks to General Hux, and it's, I felt like General Hux in The Force Awakens, he was presented as a real villain, and when he gives that speech on Starkiller Base, it like reminded me of kind of like Nazism in how fanatical he was and all the troops in front of him, and he really seemed like a villain. Whereas in The Last Jedi, I felt like he was just kind of there to be comic relief. There was nothing threatening about him, and basically his first scene involves him giving a speech to Poe saying, "We're going to destroy you," and then Poe just kind of quips back and goes like, "Oh, am I on hold? I'm trying to speak to General Hux." What? And then Poe like has a crack about Hux's mother, and Hux is just left looking like an idiot. And first, the humour didn't land for me. It didn't feel like something Poe would do in that situation, given how serious the situation was. And it made Hux seem really unthreatening and just like a fool guy, and yeah, just the humour didn't work for me, and no one else in the cinema, I didn't hear anyone laugh or anything. I was just kind of like, really? Is that it? Yeah, okay. And then a big battle goes off, and kind of the humour seems really jarring, and like you have this battle that sees characters die and it's desperate, and it was a good battle in its own right, but the fact that it was kind of set up with this joke, like the tone just seemed really off for me. There's another bit so the bomber where Rosa's sister dies delivering the payload of bombs onto the dreadnought, which Poe disarms. Look, this is perhaps a more minor quibble, but I didn't like how bombs fell in space. There is a gravity in space. Maybe they were magnetic and they were attracted to the ship or something. I don't know, but again, it was just a small thing that I noticed that kind of sucked me out of the adventure as a whole. I know it's Star Wars. I don't take Star Wars too seriously. I accept that there are explosions in space despite there is no oxygen in space and stuff like that. I go with it, but like sometimes it's just kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, in that I was just like, how are bombs falling in space? And then she was kind of on the deck with the bombs as they fell out, so how was she still breathing? I don't know, but again, a minor quibble, that one. I'm nitpicking there, but it did annoy me. And then the battle rages on, and it's a good battle overall, very well shot. The CGI looks great. It looks like your classic Star Wars space battle. Poe's a badass. I enjoyed that bit. And then Kylo Ren decides to get in his ship and attack the Rebels' main ship that Leia Organa is on. And you see she's on the bridge, and you see him come to the bridge, and he's about to bomb it and potentially kill his own mother. And at the last minute he stops, and you can see they're kind of connecting through the Force, and he just can't bring himself to do it. And I really liked that scene. I think Adam Driver was fantastic in this movie. Kylo Ren was my favourite character. I think the conflict going in him was really well done. And so I really liked that scene. But then when he decides not to fire the bomb, two other TIE fighters do, and do it for him, which I didn't mind. I thought that was fine, because obviously they don't have the attachment to Leia or anything. And the bridge gets blown up, and Leia gets sucked into space. And, I, along with I think everyone in the audience, thought she had died. I mean, she got sucked into space. She was just in the vacuum of space. You could see her body was frozen. And it felt really impactful and emotional to me. And obviously Carrie Fisher sadly passed away last year. So, we heard there'd been a lot of rewrites for the film. And I expected Leia was going to be killed off in this one, because obviously Carrie Fisher can't film any more future installments. So it felt really impactful to me. And, I was thinking about Carrie Fisher, and it just was really well done. But then I feel like they completely ruined it by having Leia wake up in space, and use the Force to fly like Mary Poppins to another rebel ship and get in. And it was like just so jarring to me. First of all, okay, humans cannot survive in space for any period of time without a spacesuit. Your blood boils, you freeze. It like no, not even Jedi. I don't care. All right, no, and just it felt so built up, and like that was her death. It felt like it had been well done, and then it was like the rug was just pulled out of the audience. And worse still, not only did she survive, she then flew through space and back onto the ship, and then collapsed and went into a coma. And it really jarred me. I didn't like it at all. It just kind of, it was like, what? I really didn't care for that at all. And then basically the crux of the story opens. Leia is out of action in a coma aboard the rebel ship, and command is given to a new character called Holdo, who is kind of Leia's second in command. And basically they've run out of fuel. The Empire can track them if they do light speed jumps, so they're kind of stuck, and they basically need a miracle to get out of this. So Poe decides that he and Finn will hatch a plan to collect a hacker from a nearby planet who can hack the Empire's systems and disable their tracker so the rebels could get away unnoticed, right? Now, I thought there was good conflict between Holdo and Poe. Poe is kind of a hotshot pilot. He wants to get in on the action. Holdo is more looking at the bigger picture. At first, I quite liked that there was tension there. It felt realistic. It was a desperate situation. So Poe goes against her wishes, hatches a plan with Finn, sends Finn off to this nearby kind of gambling planet to meet this hacker who can hack the Empire ship and allow the rebels to get away. Okay, sounds fine. Right, that's good. Okay. The problem is that Holdo had this plan the whole time to retreat to a nearby rebel planet, but didn't decide to tell Poe this or anyone else, which in turn resulted in loads more deaths and a completely unnecessary side plot with Finn and Rose and Poe. And I just don't understand why Holdo wouldn't just go, yeah, don't worry, I've got a plan, we're going to retreat somewhere. Instead, she was like, just trust me, I'll figure something out, which obviously resulted in loads of people dying, and it just seemed like she wasn't saying anything for the sake of the film, so that the main characters could have something to do, really. It felt like the writers didn't know what to do with Poe and Finn. And it just seems so strange that, like, what? And yes, so that results in Finn, along with a new character named Rose, going to a nearby gambling planet to find this hacker. Poe remains on the main ship whilst Finn travels with this new character Rose to the planet. Now, Rose is introduced as the sister of the bomber pilot who died in the opening of the film. Now, as a character, I really liked Rose. I liked her because in Star Wars you have all these heroes like Luke and Han Solo and Finn who are, these awesome good guys. Sorry, I meant to say badasses. Awesome badass good guys. And, they're heroes and they're untouchable and stuff. But obviously loads of people are still dying in these battles, loads of regular people. And I liked how Rose was introduced as a character who, in terms of, the Force and the overall story and stuff, was totally insignificant. But she got to kind of become a hero in her own right. She was like a kind of everyman, a woman, she wasn't a Force user, she wasn't a great warrior or anything. But her faith and her courage is what made her a hero. And so I liked that. I liked the idea that they were exploring kind of the everyman in Star Wars, if you like. So they travelled to this planet together. And as I say, this plan was pointless in two ways. One, because Holdo had a plan the whole time. They didn't need to disable the Empire's tracking device. And two, the plan doesn't work anyway, because as you see later, they get captured. And so the whole thing was utterly pointless. And worse still, it was unenjoyable to me. It was the weakest part of the film. Every time, we'd go from, say, Kylo Ren and Rey and cut back to Finn, I was just like, oh, God. And, I really liked Finn in The Force Awakens. I think his actor's really great. And I felt like he was doing the best with what he was given. But it really just felt like his character was made to have his wheels spinning for this film. And, yeah, that to me is kind of the worst crime in a Star Wars film, for it to be boring. I mean, I on thin ice here, I realise, but the prequel films are not good films and not worthy of Star Wars. But at least you had things like pod racing and intense action, and it wasn't boring. It didn't make sense. The characterization was terrible, but there was always something going on. Whereas when they're on this planet, they're just kind of there looking for a guy who wears a certain lapel, who's a hacker that can apparently help them. It didn't feel very good to me, and I heard someone online saying, I kind of agree with this, I think it would have been better if Rose had been the hacker on the planet and Finn had been sent to go and find her, and he teams up with her, finds her, they manage to hack together, and then they come back. That would have felt like a more justified journey than for he and her to travel to this planet. They initially find the hacker, but he's not interested in helping them, so in the end they team up with a hacker called DJ, played by Benicio del Toro, who, as a character, I really liked. I'll talk more about him later. But the whole plan eventually goes wrong, and as I say, it really turns out to be a pointless side plot. And basically it ends with them being captured by Captain Phasma, played by Gwendolyn Christie, and her stormtroopers. And at first I was like, great, it's Captain Phasma seeing Finn again. They've got history together. He's obviously kind of afraid of her and hates her. I was glad. I felt like she was underplayed in The Force Awakens. I was like, yes, I can't wait to see her here. Unfortunately, she really doesn't get anything cool to do, and she seemingly gets killed off right away. And I really like the look of Captain Phasma when she was first revealed to us, and I really like Gwendolyn Christie in Game of Thrones, and I was really disappointed that her character just really hasn't got the opportunity to do anything in the new series, and apparently now has been killed off. In The Force Awakens, we left Rey with Luke holding his lightsaber to him, and obviously this film picks up right from there. Luke, however, has become a hermit. He's no longer interested in training Jedi or being a Jedi. She gives him his lightsaber, he just tosses it over his shoulder. He is completely disinterested in the Force or training a new generation of Jedi. Now, initially I found this to be very interesting. I thought it was a good twist to go. Everyone thought Luke would be like, I'll train you straight away, but he wasn't. You could see some things had happened to him. He wasn't the Luke we know. However, ultimately I feel like Luke's character was let down in this film for a number of reasons. Okay, I didn't mind him being a hermit and not wanting to train Rey, but his reasons for doing so didn't seem to fly with me, and I didn't like the backstory they revealed with him and Kylo Ren. So Kylo Ren was originally going to be trained by Luke with a number of other young Force-sensitive children back when they were kids, obviously, and it's revealed that Luke began to sense darkness in Kylo Ren. So one night he snuck into his bedroom while he was sleeping and kind of used the Force to get into his mind and saw great darkness there. And so for a moment he ignited his lightsaber and was about to kill Kylo Ren in order to prevent this darkness from being realised. Kylo Ren wakes up as he ignites his lightsaber and obviously he thinks Luke's about to kill him, so understandably defends himself and does a massive Force push and pushes Luke through the building and escapes with a few other young Jedi who I assume become the Knights of Ren. They're not shown in this film at all, but I presume that's who they are. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest, not to see them in this film. I hope they get expanded upon. But yeah, so that's why kind of Kylo embraced the dark side more, because essentially he'd been betrayed by the light side, by Luke. Now, I like that idea of Kylo Ren not being a straight-up villain. At first we think that he just burnt down the Jedi Temple as a kid for the hell of it, but it turns out he had very good reasons to. He thought he was going to be killed. So I liked that aspect, but I felt like it was really a bad thing for Luke's character. In the original trilogy, Luke was, the last hope, the Jedi. He would see the Jedi return. He was incredibly powerful with the Force. He was a good guy. And throughout the original trilogy, Luke is the only one who senses the good in Vader and thinks that he can be turned. And indeed, he does turn him in the end. So it seemed really strange to me that Luke would sense some darkness in Kylo Ren and then think, well, I've got no choice but to murder this child. It seemed very strange to me. I would have thought Luke's character would be more with, I sense this darkness, so I'm going to work twice as hard to help him. It just seems strange that he go, well, better kill him then. I've heard some generally older fans who, first experienced the original trilogy when they were young, say they really didn't like this, that they felt it tarnished Luke. My dad didn't like it at all. And I've heard a lot of other people who really like Luke say they hated that scene and they felt like it betrayed his character. And I've got to say, I didn't hate it as such, but I didn't like it much either. And I can completely understand why some people might dislike that. But I did like how it added more layers to Kylo Ren. Now, I think Daisy Ridley continues to do a good job as Rey. I liked her character. I liked her trying to convince Luke to train her. She doesn't really get to do a whole lot on the island except follow Luke around. There's one scene where she kind of goes down this black hole, which is kind of akin to how Luke goes into that weird cave in Dagobah. But again, there's not much consequence to any of that. And there was a very strange scene with Luke where he milks a 4-titted alien giraffe thing, which that's not the worst part of the film, but in a 2.5 hour long film, that was an unnecessary scene. One, it was weird to see Luke Skywalker milking the breasts of this weird alien to get some milk that he then drinks right away. And it wasn't funny, so I don't think it was in there for humour's sake. It just felt really weird, really weird. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen in Star Wars, and that's really saying something. I know this is kind of a small thing to moan about, but it just seemed really strange to me. I sat up in the cinema, what? I didn't like that. So anyway, Luke insists he won't train Rey, so in the end she goes, look, if you're not going to help me, I'll do this myself. And she goes off to go and help her friends, and no, sorry, she doesn't. She goes off to go and meet Kylo Ren to try and persuade him to join the light side, because throughout her time training on this island, she and Kylo Ren have been having conversations with each other through the Force. And I really like this bit of the film where they're kind of talking to each other, and she's on this remote island, he's on a starship, and yet the way it's cut, it does look like they're in the same location having conversations, except their background's different, obviously. But I really like that, and the conflict between the two. She has her ideals, he has his, and they're both seeing one another's sides and why they think that way. I thought that was very well done. So in the end, she abandons Luke and decides to go and confront Kylo Ren. After Rey has left Luke, Luke is approached by Yoda, surprise for fans, who convinces him that Luke, should learn from his mistakes, and that just because he made mistakes once, that teaches him to be better in the future. Now, I really liked Yoda's message in this. Luke goes to this ancient cave where the first Jedi texts are stored, and Yoda just sets fire to it and goes, sometimes we need to leave the past behind. And I think that was a really good message, and I really liked that, how Yoda, this Jedi Master, was like, look, leave all that bullshit, focus on the future, don't let the past drag you down. And I thought that was really good. But again, I have an issue in that when Yoda first appeared, he seemed to look really strange to me. When he first appeared, you could tell they're using a puppet, which fine, I like practical effects, but also with some CGI to make him look like a Force ghost. And it just looked really strange to me. It kind of looked better as his scene progressed. By the end, he looked normal again. But when he first appeared, again, I feel bad criticising something as good as Yoda, but I just sort of sat up in the cinema. I was like, whoa, like Yoda, what happened to you? You know, so I really liked the scene as a whole and the message it conveyed and how it helped the plot go forward. And it was nice to see Yoda again. But like, let me know, was I the only one that thought he looked a bit off? I don't know, but yeah. It was a bit strange for me. Whilst Finn and Rose are on the gambling planet, Poe and Holdo are, having a lot of tension with one another back on the rebel ship. Holdo appears to have no real plan, and Poe is saying, we need to do something. He's trying to come up with plans. He's trying to lead, but she won't have any of it, and it creates a lot of tension, obviously, between the two. But tension, really, that I wasn't buying, and was made even worse when it was later revealed that she did have a plan the whole time. For some reason, she just wouldn't tell anyone. And in the bridge explosion that almost kills Leia, unfortunately, Admiral Akbar is killed, and, it's a trap, that guy. And I've always liked him as a Star Wars character, and I was pleased when he was reintroduced in the new series. And I was really disappointed that you don't even see him get killed. It's just mentioned by one of the characters that Akbar died in the explosion. And again, this seemed like a thing to me that could easily have helped improve the film if, instead of having Holdo take over command, what if Akbar survived the explosion with Leia, perhaps she saved him even, and he became the new commanding officer. And that way, the tension that he would have had with Poe would have been more interesting to viewers, because Holdo is set up as just kind of a character you're meant to not like straight away. But with Akbar, I would have felt more conflicted, because although I would have seen that Poe had the best intentions, we know Admiral Akbar from past films. We know he's not an idiot. We know he's a good guy. And so I feel like the audience would have had more conflict watching two characters we like go head to head, rather than one who's just been introduced and Poe who we like. So again, I feel like that was a missed trick, and I felt like Akbar was kind of killed off for no real reason. So yeah, okay, that happened. And then it's revealed that she does have a plan. They're heading for a nearby planet that has a rebel hideout on, and they're going to sacrifice the ship and use the escape pods to get to the planet. Okay, cool, right, fine. She's got a plan then finally. Don't know why she didn't tell anyone, but she has a plan. Another criticism I then have of this scene, they're all getting onto the escape pods ready to get onto this planet, and you think, great, they're all going to get away. Leia's woken up just in time, so she gets on a pod as well. But then, for some reason, and I'm sorry if I missed something here, and there is a reason, but I honestly, having seen this film, I didn't pick up on it. For some reason, Holdo elects to stay behind with the ship that's going to be destroyed by the Empire's bombardment. And I really don't see a reason why she would have chosen to do that. There seemed to be no reason. The pods didn't need to be controlled from the ship or anything. There didn't seem to be a reason for anyone to need to stay behind. She just elected to, for some reason. And I think ultimately the reason she did was because later on in the film, she destroys the First Order ship by getting her ship to go into light speed and just smashing through it, which was an incredible scene. It looked amazing. However, there wasn't a need to do that when she decided to stay behind. She didn't go, I'm going to stay behind so I can crash the ship. She didn't think of that until later. The situation didn't need it at that point. So I feel like the only reason they had her stay behind was because they knew later on she'd need to do that. But there was no reason for her to stay behind in the first place. So that annoyed me. It didn't make any sense to me. But okay, she stays behind, and then for a few scenes you just sort of see her in the ship, just kind of looking glum, looking at the Empire, and then later on she thinks, aha, I could crash the ship into it. Which makes you think, why didn't the rebels just get old ships and fly them into Empire ships if they're that good at destroying them? But anyway, yes, so I didn't like that either, unfortunately. Now I want to talk about Carrie Fisher's role in the film and the character of Princess Leia. Now, as you know, Carrie Fisher passed away last year, almost a year ago, and it was really sad for Star Wars fans. It was really sad for me. Just as kind of Star Wars was back in our lives, to lose one of the main actors of Star Wars was, horrible. And I was really interested to see how her character was going to develop throughout this film, because obviously she can't be in any future ones. So I felt quite certain that Princess Leia would be killed off in this film. And the way that Leia is used in this film, I felt it wasn't well done, because in the back of my mind I had this knowledge that she couldn't be in any future films. So every time Leia was in trouble in the film, and there are several times where it seems like she was going to die, I was kind of getting emotional, more so than usual, because obviously her actress has passed away. And then, spoilers, Leia survives the entire film. And so every time it felt like there was a threat to Leia's life in this film, it felt to me like it kind of ripped me out of the experience, because I was thinking, oh, okay, so because Carrie Fisher's passed away, this will be the bit where she dies. And then she wouldn't, and it's like I was thinking that several times throughout the film, and it was making me kind of tear my mind away from the film to think about the reality of, the writing behind the film and the making of it, and the fact it's actors and stuff, and so it just really like emotionally kind of played with me, but not in a nice way. It didn't feel good, and I don't mean that as a criticism to the writers or anything of the film. This film at the end, it says, is dedicated to the memory of Carrie Fisher. I'm not saying this was designed to be disrespectful or anything, I don't mean that at all. It seems strange to me that although Carrie Fisher is no longer with us, Leia is the only character from the original trilogy still alive now. And that just seems strange to me. Like, how are they going to pull that? Some people have been saying they think the next film will be set a few years after this film, and that she'll have passed away in between that time, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I guess some people could argue that it would have been disrespectful to have Leia killed on screen when Carrie Fisher really has died. I could see that. Some people... It felt strange to me that they had Leia survive to fight, despite the fact Carrie Fisher hasn't. That kind of felt weird to me, because it was like, but she's passed away in real life, I don't know, it really was difficult. I don't know if there was a right way to do this that could have satisfied everyone, or not made some people feel uncomfortable. But obviously, it's a terrible thing that Carrie passed away, and yeah, I guess they did the best they could, but it still, it was something I noticed, on an emotional level. The film reaches its climax with the rebels reaching their stronghold on the Salt planet. It looks like Hoth, but it's actually salt on there. And meanwhile, Rey confronts Kylo Ren, and Luke is heading to help out the rebels. Now, first of all, Rey meets with Kylo Ren, and it seems like Kylo Ren is like, I'm not coming to the dark side. He takes her to go and see Supreme Leader Snoke. Snoke was first introduced in The Force Awakens, and he really intrigued me as a character. I really liked his voice, done by Andy Serkis. I liked the look of him, the terribly scarred. We only see him as a hologram in The Force Awakens, but we see him physically in this one, and he's like 8 feet tall and really hulking and, very intimidating. I was really interested in Snoke. I had so many questions. How did he get so scarred? Is he a character from the prequels or the original trilogy? How did he become the Supreme Leader? He obviously has Force powers. We see him use throughout this film. Is he a Sith? If so, which one? Where did he come from? Unfortunately, all that is completely negated, because when he orders Kylo Ren to kill Rey, Kylo Ren kills Snoke. And they don't even fight or anything. Kylo Ren just uses Rey's lightsaber to chop Snoke in half, like that. And I really didn't like that, because I think Snoke was a really intriguing character. I wanted to learn more about him, and I don't think we're gonna now. He's gone. I thought he was going to be a big bad guy like the Emperor, but no. he was just there essentially to help Kylo Ren's plot along, and he feels really wasted in my opinion. Again, I really liked the conflict of Adam Driver's character. Kylo Ren, you could see he's just being torn apart by light and dark. And I loved how he was looking at Rey, like you could tell he didn't know whether to kill her or not, and eventually he chose to kill Snoke. I liked that he ultimately did that, but I didn't like the fact it resulted in us losing a character we know nothing about. So, yeah, again, like, you know, for every good thing in this film, I feel like there's always a but, you know, but it means this happens. And that's a real shame. I was really hoping that Snoke was going to prove to be a villain we could really feel threatened by in Star Wars, but that's just not the case. After killing Snoke, there's an excellent lightsaber fight with Rey and Kylo Ren where they team up together to kill Snoke's kind of bodyguard, the guys in the red armour, who fight really well, and it's a really great shot fight. That was probably my favourite moment in the film. Really, really good, and I really enjoyed seeing them two work together after they've been having this kind of weird bonding session throughout the film. That was very good. Back on the Rebel stronghold, the Empire has got a fleet of AT-AT walkers going against the stronghold, which just has a door, a big steel door to defend against, and they're just going to blast this thing with a kind of what they call a mini Death Star gun that's just going to massive, like, pound a hole into this door, and then they'll be able to shoot the rebels and kill them all. Now, they find some, like, old rickety ships to fight back with. There aren't many weapons or anything in this stronghold left, and C-3PO, remember this, specifically says to them that steel door is the only way in or out. There's no other way. So they've got to fight, make their stand. Okay? Remember that, because that's important later. So, Finn leads a desperate last charge against the AT-AT walkers, where Hux and Kylo Ren are in there. Kylo Ren goes there shortly after Rey and him kill the palace guards, which ends with a big explosion where they rip Luke's original lightsaber in half, which creates an explosion. Rey wakes up, gets away. Kylo Ren wakes up later, joins this battle on the planet. So he and Hux are in the AT-AT walkers, and this gun is preparing to fire this massive explosion into the door. Poe and Finn lead a last desperate charge with Rose, and they're in these ships, and they're getting beat back, and so Finn decides he's just going to crash his ship into this big gun to destroy it. And again, I was getting emotional. He's charging towards it. I was thinking, like, shit, is a main character going to die here? And then at the last minute, Rose uses her ship to crash into his and save them from being killed by the gun, which does then fire into the gate and brings it down. Now, Rose then says to him, we fight to defend the things we love, not kill the things we hate or something. But again, this I didn't like either, because one, the emotional build-up was very good, and I was preparing for him to die, and he was going to die a hero, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can get on with that. And then at the last minute, she takes out his ship, meaning that they managed to blow a hole through there and kill how many rebels, we don't know, but plenty. And it just seemed like she decided to save him selfishly, to save him, because it turns out she loves him, and let, you know, loads of rebels get slaughtered. It seemed pointless to me. I would have been angry if I was Finn, you know. And then she kisses him, and pretty much everyone in the cinema with me just kind of rolled their eyes, because I liked Rose's character. I liked her kind of banter with Finn, and the way they discuss kind of the morality of everything that's going on together when they're on the gambling planet. But I didn't feel there was any romantic connection with them. I was under the assumption that Rey and Finn were kind of liked each other. So, and there was no hint throughout the film, I felt, that Rose and Finn had a thing for each other. And then she just kisses him, and it was like, well, where did that come from? It didn't feel earned as a romance plot. It just feels like they put it in there to put it in there. And God, I hope this doesn't lead to a love triangle between Rey, Finn and Rose, because I cannot be bothered with that. So yeah, I liked Rose's character overall, but I didn't like that they just shoehorned in that romance scene. As they're fighting on the planet, the Millennium Falcon suddenly appears, and an issue I have again, the pacing. I didn't like how Rey 1 minute was on Kylo Ren's ship, and then the Millennium Falcon appeared and started helping the rebels. And I genuinely was like, who is piloting that? Like, I couldn't think who would be in a position to be piloting the Falcon. I was like, well, Rey was just on the ship, the rebels on the ground, so who's in that? I was like, is it Luke? And then it cuts and it's Rey and Chewbacca. And it's like, okay, so I guess she got away from Kylo Ren's ship, got into the Falcon and managed to get there. I appreciate the Kylo Ren ship was near the planet, so she could do that in the given time. But how did she manage to get to the planet when Kylo Ren's entire fleet was surrounding it? How did she manage to sneak in without anyone noticing? I'll accept it, again, it's Star Wars, like, fine, I won't nitpick the hell out of it. But it was just another little thing where I was genuinely like, oh, who's in that? Because we see it do some action for a while before you see who's piloting it. And to me, it was like, I wish they could have cut that a bit better. After the blast door is destroyed, Luke suddenly appears. And it's like, oh yes, here he is. We saw on the island he had a downed X-Wing. So it was possible for him to get off that island and come and help the rebels. So it was like, yes, here comes Luke. He's going to help save the day. He meets with Leia and basically has a goodbye with her. And I was thinking like, oh man, like someone's going to die here. He gives her some dice that were on the Millennium Falcon that I assume belong to Han Solo. We've never seen them before, as far as I can remember, in any of the films. But they seem to hold a lot of sentimentality in this film, which didn't feel earned because I'd never seen them before. But fine, okay, he hands her these dice. And then he goes out to confront the First Order. And again, this scene was beautiful to look at. The cinematography was excellent. Luke goes out and stares down these AT-AT walkers. Kylo Ren is like, fire everything we have on Luke. So they're just bombarding him. You know, he seems to do nothing. He just stands there and all the smoke comes up. You can't see him anymore. And then finally they cease the bombardment and Luke is still just stood there, absolutely fine. It's like, oh my god, is he using the Force or something as a shield? And Kylo Ren's like, right, I'm ending this now. Gets out, goes to confront Luke one-on-one. I was like, yes, here we go. Like, action is about to start. So Luke and Kylo Ren have a short fight in which Luke doesn't use his lightsaber to block any blows, he just dodges them. And then Kylo Ren gets a hit in on Luke, but his lightsaber goes right through him. And it's revealed that Luke isn't physically there and is actually still back on his island, just meditating and using the Force to create this avatar of him to fight Kylo Ren, to give the rebels time to escape the base, even though C-3PO said there was no other way to get out. It's then revealed there is. Meanwhile, Rey removes some rocks that are covering the back entrance and they get on the Millennium Falcon and fly away. So Luke did all that to save time. However, even when he meets Leia, he doesn't go, look, I'm going to go out there and give you time to escape. He doesn't say any of that. It's up to Poe to have to figure out that Luke is doing this to help them escape. He's like, he must be doing this for a reason. Let's look for an exit. And again, how they were supposed to figure that out. Why couldn't they have Luke just say, you know, get out of here, I'll cover you type thing? I don't know. But Luke does this. It turns out he's not physically there. He's back on his island. And for some reason, he then dies. And his body just evaporates. And he's gone. And again, I assume the effort of using the Force to create an avatar of yourself, like, drained him of all his life. But I didn't like that at all. I didn't like he wasn't physically there. One, it felt like the Force just has no rules now. It felt very kind of ex machina, and like there's been no, you know, I get that the Force is a powerful tool and it can make you do a lot of cool things, but we've never seen any instance of Jedi being able to do avatars like that, and it just seemed like they pulled it out their ass to me. I didn't like how physically he wasn't there, so Kylo Ren's lightsaber could go through him and such, but he was able to like hand Leia the dice and hold her hand and stuff like that. Like, wouldn't she have felt he wasn't there? It seemed like they kind of killed him off for no reason. It seemed weird to me that he decided afterwards, thanks to Yoda, that he would train a new generation of Jedi. He even says to Kylo Ren, "I'm not the last Jedi." But then he decides to pursue an action that makes him die. You'd think, surely if you want to have a new generation of Jedi, it would be really good to have a powerful Jedi like Luke to train them. Now there's no one. I assume he'll be a Force ghost or something later, but it just seemed pointless to me, to be honest. It really didn't feel like an earned death. I can see why fans of Luke are disappointed. That's how he went out. And yeah, I didn't like it at all. It felt like they just completely bent the rules of the Force just to suit the purpose of the film. Another gripe I have is that when the Rebels are launching this final battle, Leia says, "Send out a beacon saying we need help. Send it across the galaxy and hopefully anyone who sympathises with our cause will come and help us." I was expecting a cavalry to arrive. You know, the Rebels have done so much for decades to help the galaxy. They've destroyed 2 Death Stars, Starkiller Base, they destroyed Vader. You know, they've done so much to help free the galaxy, and yet no one gave a shit. No one cared enough to come and help them, and I do not understand that. The Empire has destroyed at least 2 planets now. You know, you'd think that the rest of the galaxy would be really hostile towards the Empire and would, you know, if it would come and help at that time of crisis, you know, that they would heed the call when Leia needed them, but they didn't, which just, it was like, what do the Rebels need to do to get some allies? I mean, you know, I heard someone say it made the original trilogy's accomplishments feel pointless, and I can kind of see that. You know, what's going on with the rest of the galaxy while the Empire's just blowing up the planets? What's the rest do? Just hoping they don't pick them? It just seems, it's like, why even have that scene at all? Just not have Leia put out a message. I didn't like that. And then the last scene I also didn't like, which shows one of the kids on the gambling planet is sweeping up and he uses the Force to grab the broom. And then he looks up at the stars and he's got a Rebel Alliance ring on, which is kind of hinting that there will be a new generation of Jedi and that the rebellion has inspired people, even though it hasn't inspired them enough to come and help them in their hour of need. And that scene kind of fell flat with me as well, because it didn't really feel earned. It didn't feel like it was important. Okay, so there are Force-sensitive people out there, but all the Jedi Masters are dead now, so yeah, I guess Rey's got to tease them, or maybe a Force Ghost Luke or something. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the end of the film, and those are all my problems with it, and you know, problems that I've heard other people have with it. So yeah, as I say, I don't enjoy making this video. I really wanted to like this film. I was really looking forward to seeing it. I saw it on the preview day. And yeah, I'm gutted that I was disappointed with it. And you know, the reviews were so good and continue to be good, and yet talking to a lot of people, they don't seem to like it either. So I don't know why the reviews have been so strong. It's definitely not as good as The Empire Strikes Back. No way. I think it's definitely not as good as The Force Awakens. I'm not really into giving like numeric scores for reviews and stuff, but if I had to, The Force Awakens, not a very original film, but it really had a lot of heart to it, and I remember just enjoying every second of it at the cinema. I would have given that, say, a 7 out of 10. The Last Jedi, I think I would give a 5 at best. There isn't a lot I liked about it, to be honest. However, there were some things I did like about it, and I'm going to talk about them now. Things I liked about the film. First of all, it looked fantastic. The cinematography was excellent. It's quite possibly one of the best looking Star Wars films I've ever seen. There was just moments where I just thought that would make a great screenshot or a great poster. There are so many scenes in this film that really do look excellent. I really loved how whenever there was a lightsaber on screen, someone using a lightsaber, Rey or Kylo Ren, it was always a pulled back shot so you could see them from head to toe. And it really reminded me of films like Seven Samurai, where it's not quick cuts and action and just showing their faces. You could see all of the movement, their leg work, where they were going to strike, where they were parrying. I really liked the way they choreographed the fights and the way they shot them. I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed that. I also really liked the scene where Holdo decides to smash her ship into the Empire ship. Again, the circumstances of it weren't very good, but the scene itself was incredibly well shot. It all goes silent, you see it rip through the ship. It was an excellent, excellent scene. That I really thought that was great. I really liked Rey and Kylo Ren's relationship, their conversations through the Force. They're both kind of being pulled apart by forces of good and evil. I really liked that. I thought Adam Driver was arguably the best part of this film. I think he's done a great job as Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is quickly becoming my favourite character. I love how complex he is as a character. And I think Daisy Ridley is also doing a great job as Rey. Although the CGI for Yoda looked a bit weird to me, or the puppetry and what have you, I really like the message he gives to Luke of just being like, look, you need to let go. I think that's a good message for Star Wars. I think it's a good message. It's kind of a meta message saying we need to not always compare new films with the original trilogy. And I think it's a good lesson for life in general. You know, in life we could get so bogged down with past and mistakes we've made. And Yoda's just like, look, mistakes are how we learn. Sometimes we really mess things up, but that's how we move forward, by learning from them. And he burns the old Jedi texts, or at least we think he does, and he's just like, start a new page. I really liked that. And I felt like, I was worried at first it was just going to be fan service to have Yoda in the film, but there really seemed to be a point to his character. Again, didn't look totally convincing to me, but I liked the way he was used. Okay, I can overlook that. Overall, I thought Yoda was a great addition to the film. I really liked Benicio del Toro's character. I think he's a fantastic actor. And, you know, his character is this hacker who just switches sides from Rebel to Empire, whatever's best for him. And essentially, you know, he just says to them, like, in war, it's so morally grey. You know, he points out that many of the rich people on this gambling planet have invested in both Empire and Rebel weapons and stuff. And he's like, just looks out for himself. And I kind of feel in a way it's like, yeah, you know, like, rather than dying to destroy the other side or dying for your cause, he just goes where it takes him. And sometimes he helps the Rebels, sometimes he helps the Empire. Ultimately, he helps the Empire. But I found him to be a very intriguing character. I would be interested in seeing him getting his own film. I love the idea of a kind of con man who's playing both sides, you know, doesn't really care who wins. I thought he was very intriguing. I would be interested in seeing more of him, for sure. And I also like the character of Rose. She's been a bit... so I've heard some people say they liked her, some people didn't. I liked her generally. I really liked the idea of there being a character who was meant to be a kind of every person, you know, just one tiny cog in the rebellion rather than a big hero. I didn't like her romance scene with Finn. It felt forced. But overall, I liked her character and I'd be interested in seeing her again. So that's my feelings, impressions, review, if you want to call it that, for The Last Jedi. I've only seen it once. I saw it yesterday. I'm going to see it again next week. I want to see it again because I feel like it's such a lot to take in. I don't feel like I can quite accurately kind of really give my thoughts on it just yet, even though I know I just have, but I feel like I need to see this a couple of times before I really cement my opinion of it. I hope I like it more the second time round if I'm not having to take everything in. You know, I know the overall plot. I can focus on the smaller details. I hope that's the case. I'm going to make a follow-up video to this, so, you know, stay tuned for that if you want it. So we'll see how I feel about it then, but first gut impressions of this, I am quite disappointed, to be honest. I'm really intrigued to hear what other people say about this. You know, there are some people who have really liked it, and, you know, I don't think they're just being fanboys or anything. I think there are certainly things to like about this film. I do really appreciate that it isn't just a rehash of, say, Empire Strikes Back, a bit like The Force Awakens was for A New Hope. I appreciate they're going in a new direction. I applaud their boldness, but for me, I didn't feel it really paid off. However, I'm really interested to talk to people about this. Let me know in the comments, what did you think about it? What did you like? What did you not like? Were there any critiques I had of it you thought were unfair? Let me know. I really want to discuss this film. I think it's going to cause a lot of debate. Let's all be civil with each other over it, okay? It's just a film. And yeah, let me know what you thought. See you next time.